Hey folks, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us. This is Russ Basiura. I have Christian Buckley with me today. Hey Christian, we're going to take the time to basically go through 20 more tips for improving your productivity with Microsoft Teams. And we had 20 tips that we did last month. This is a brand new set of 20 tips. I think as we go through them, you may find some that are new things that you didn't know about, hopefully, and probably some that, hopefully we can fill in some gaps and maybe even talk about coming functionality for what you should see in the next month or two coming.
Yeah, something for everyone. So people that are seasoned Teams users, people that are brand new.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to share out these slides and okay.
All right, I see him.
All right, so mentioned I'm Russ Basiura. I'm not going to go through all the details here, but essentially I've been living in the world of SharePoint since really 1999, so 2 years before SharePoint was fully released production, and I've been involved with it. And a couple years ago, I got involved with Teams because I saw it as the next evolution in functionality and collaboration. So I've been working with Teams for about 2 years now, and I've done a bunch of stuff. I've run a gold certified Microsoft partner. I spent 10 years growing that, spent a lot of time running the Philadelphia area SharePoint user group, and I've done SharePoint conference talks and all. So I want to bring in Christian. Christian, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Christian Buckley, so I'm a Microsoft MVP and Regional Director based here in Lehigh, Utah. I've been in collaboration technology since the late 90s. Had a startup, sold my company, worked for some other venture capital-based startups that created collaboration technology. Like Russ, I got involved in SharePoint, I guess in the early days. I always thought of myself as kind of a latecomer to SharePoint. I only got involved in 2005.
That was probably a good thing.
It's what's funny is I always share this, that my first experience with deploying SharePoint in 2005, I actually tried to talk the client out of deploying SharePoint. And then a year later, I kind of caught the bug and ended up going to work for Microsoft. And was with the team that was called MMS, or Microsoft Managed Services, which became BPOS, or Business Productivity Online Services, which became Office 365. So I was there at kind of the beginning of that. I think the team was formed about 6 months or so before I joined. But I've been working with ISVs since 2009. Been to a number of acquisitions, and I now so I run my company on Teams. I launched in January 3 years ago. So I've been using Teams since day one, since it was released, and running my company on it. And so a lot of the things that we're going to be sharing, of course, there's new features and capabilities, but quite a few things that are just kind of best practices tips, as well as feature-driven tips. So hopefully you'll find some value out of what we're going to share. And as Russ said, you just be able to get more out of the platform.
Excellent. So just say a word on that. The session's being recorded, and it's going to be posted to YouTube. And we will also share the slides through our LinkedIn and Christian's blog. We'll have the slides on it. If you want to see last month's version, that's the YouTube URL for it. And the subscribe link is where that's the link to the channel where the video will actually be posted. So if you want to have a way of going back to it, look for it there. But as I mentioned, we'll share it out through our social media also. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Christian.
Yep, let me request control. There you go.
You got it.
Excellent. Yeah, the way that we're doing this is you see here. So I'm going to share the first 5 versus instead of Russ and I just going back and forth every other one that we're sharing, we're taking them in chunks of 5. So I'm going to do that. And I know that, so we've got the Q&A module, and somebody is spamming us right now over there, Russ, if you want to go take a look at that. But if you've got questions, we'll try to monitor while the other person's talking, and post up those questions. And of course, we've got the chat conversation going. So we got multiple places where you can ask questions. We'll try to address as we go through live. So I'm just going to start with these first 5, get things rolling. And did it? Let me see. Does that need to be on screen for it? See where the controls are.
I can see you.
Yeah, I can see it moving forward as well. But it's not. There it is. There we go. Okay. Now I've got it. I think I just had to click on it once. So here's the first one. So adding an Office document as a tab. And so this is just something that's very simple, very basic, but is an important thing. And to be honest, with all of the different, I'm a member of about a dozen different tenants as a guest, collaborating with partners and community activities. And I see people that will upload content and then want to collaborate around it, still sending it as a link. And I was asked the question, it's like, just go in. We're all working on this document. It's the primary thing that we're working on together. Go and add it as a tab. So it's right up front. We're all collaborating on it in real time. We can see the progress that's being made as we're creating this new content or editing existing content. And so it's just a great, simple way to collaborate. And so it might, because let's be honest, we still are very much document centric in our collaboration. And so this is a great way, rather than just uploading the content to a cloud storage location, actually adding it as a tab so it's part of that present. And so doing that, it's really simple. So an Office document, of course, is drawing from that content that is available online. So from the top of the screen there up, you see the project team, that I'm in the right channel. I'm just going to hit the plus mark to add a new tab, and lost my control. Oop. Go back. All right. So I'm just going to add the tab there. I'm just, for whatever reason, the keyboard controls, it just kind of goes stale, Russ. So I'm just going to leave it down here on screen, which is fine. And so it opens up add a tab. And so from here, you can, if you're collaborating on an Excel file or a form or a Word document, which in this case, that's what we're going to do, just click on that item. Again, it's pulling from within that project team. So go and you still upload that content from that cloud location, double click on the item. So navigate to find that from the right channel, from the right location. And then you find that document as it is a tab. And then right from there, you're able to go in and collaborate within that document. And, so all the capabilities there. What's great about this, especially in Word, is, you don't have to go back out to the channel to have the conversation right from within the Word doc. And you see kind of the top right corner, you see the little chat module, add your comments in and do that, co-editing capability right from within the tab within Teams. So really cool feature. I'm using it more and more as I'm this is one of those things where I'm, people know that it's not a new feature. They know that this capability that's out there. And so you just have to kind of redirect people to this best practice of, we're collaborating on a document, we're collaborating on this file over and over again. Let's add it as a tab, just part of this channel, and then have all of our commentary, our comments, our markup right there in this live document. The second one is, this is great tip, especially if you're working on the road. You just got your one screen, your laptop window, and where you're really trying to utilize all the space that's there. Working off that, Teams can get a bit crowded. There's a lot going on with the left navigation, with the conversations, with what you're trying to do in the screen. And so this is one of those things where people tend to forget, hey, this is really simple. If you need more screen real estate, over on the right side, you have those arrows that are moving away from each other. That's the expansion tab. Click on that and it will close that left-hand column and give you more real estate. So you've got more room to work on whatever it is you're working on. You want to expand that back out, jump over to a different team. You can always click on the teams over on the left rail, and that will open up your options again. Or if you're just looking to expand in the screen of what you're in without having to navigate back to that channel, you can see that the arrows are now together. You click it again, it will open that column back up. Really simple. And I should mention that see that it has Tom Duff's picture. Tom and I do monthly webinars where we're sharing tips that are cross-workload. So Teams is just one piece of that. But he and I often do kind of best of sessions, presentations, and we share tips that each other have added, included in those monthly webinars. And that's why I shared it down at the bottom, this tip courtesy of Tom. Not that Tom thought this stuff up, and a lot of times we'll share tips that the other person is also prepared to talk about, but Tom got there first, and happy to share that out. So, all right, so that's getting more screen space. The third one of the no duh features, the basic features, is again one of those things that sometimes I forget about. But when you're in Teams and you've got a bunch of activities that are going on, you sometimes get lost in that navigation. Where was I? What was I working on? Which channel was that in? Which document was I working on? Because you jump to 3 or 4 different places just as part of the natural what happens. What we're multitasking, or somebody wants to chat with us and we go sideways. But it's really quick and easy to get back. And so you have those arrow keys up in the top left corner. It's just a quick way to navigate back and forth. So Tom has these screenshots. He uses example of, going over into you're starting out in this chat, discussing something with Sandra. So there's the chat, the conversation, and he jumps over to something else and gets kind of sidetracked. And then by clicking that left arrow, takes him right back to that conversation with Sandra. And so this is just a great way to navigate forward and backwards and jump around depending on what you're working on. Just yet another way. I know that another way that I kind of manage those activities, especially if I'm having to, and this is within a single tenant, that's the limitation. If you're jumping between tenants, then this won't help you. So this is within a tenant. So I use something I know people will have within Chrome or the new Edge browser, and they'll set up multiple profiles and they'll be logged into multiple tenants at the same time. I use a solution called Rambox, which is free, that's out there, that does the same thing. I find that it takes less memory. It's less of a resource hog than having like the Chrome browser open. Edge, of course, is less of a resource hog than Chrome, even the Chromium version of Edge. But I use Rambox, and that's the way I can have multiple tenants that I'm logged into as tabs and easily jump between those. And then within each one of those, use the arrows to move back and forth. I don't know, Russ, do you use Rambox or something like that, or do you use multiple Chrome, multiple tabs or windows?
I use multiple windows inside of Chrome.
Yeah, I mean, whatever's comfortable, you can do that. You can have them separate, and like I'm quick on the Alt tab, moving between applications in my window, and so I'll even have things that are open in Chrome, in the desktop app in Teams, as well as in Rambox, and then Alt tab in between those because it's incredibly fast to move in between those if I'm doing activities and jumping in between tenants.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
All right, fourth, controlling who can email a channel. And so, of course, there is the ability to go in and you've got deeper integrations that are available now between Teams and Outlook. There's the share capability that we're still waiting for some things over on the Outlook side to be able to share an email over into Teams. But you have the ability today, and you've had since the beginning, the ability to go in and email into a team, into a conversation. And so it's a way to insert conversation. And again, this is one of those things where the most common scenario that I've followed is that we're having a chat inside of Teams, and then suddenly somebody will email me as part of that, relevant to that conversation in Teams. They'll email me over in Outlook. And I'll be like, well, why are we having this conversation outside of what's happening here? And so I have the ability to email that thread, that side thread, into that conversation and draw that person back in. I might mention them and say, hey, I've shared out your email, this side thread with the rest of the team. So it's just another way that you can draw people into that conversation. Now you have the ability as the team owner to set up whether you're allowing people to email or not. But the way to go in and do that, of course, so if I click on that channel, you can get the email address and so that you can have that over in Outlook and email content over into that. But you have through the admin controls, let's see if it'll move forward. There we go. So you see the get email address. As part of that, as the team owner and the channel owner, you can go in there and decide as part of the controls, so the advanced settings, and as you see here, anyone can send emails to this address. You probably want to set as only members of the team, which makes sense. You don't want somebody to see this strange email, the new productivity schmoductivity address up top, see that being CC'd in that email thread, for example, but not be a member of that team and then spamming that team. I think it's the likelihood of that happening is small, but you can control down to only members of the team or only emails sent from specific domains as well. So ways that you can control if you have concerns about that email address getting out there. And if you, for example, see some spam hit the channel, that you could go in and control that.
Yeah, that's a great way to prevent. We're getting some echo there. So that's a way to prevent employees when they leave of emailing stuff into a channel that they shouldn't have access to any longer. You know, if it's coming from an outside domain, they may have that email address and still be able to email into that channel. But if it's blocked this way, you know, it prevents that from happening.
Right. Exactly. And of course, if it still remains a problem for some reason, you need the admin can always go in and turn that off. And if you do that even temporarily, if you've got a spammer while you're trying to find out who that is and block that domain, whatever you want to do, that block list within your overall domain for your system, let your admins sort that out. You can then always turn that back on later. And the fifth item that I have here, I love when they finally added this feature, which is the Meet Now feature. And so sometimes in this instance, and Tom and I had a conversation around this when he shared this out during our little competitive bout sharing tips. So this was something that I'd actually seen in other platforms going back to the early 2000s. Worked for a company in 2001. We had this capability built into our collaboration platform, and I've just found it to be fantastic. Certainly, there are times where you could go in either through your email or directly within the Teams, the calendar mode, where you go and create that new meeting. You know who you want to invite. You know what the structure of the meeting needs to be, the outcomes of that, and you set it up in advance. Other times where it's much more collaborative, where we're discussing something in chat and Russ and I just want to jump in, be face to face. We can talk faster than we're typing and be able to better communicate. And we also, during that session, so we just click on Meet Now, it instantly opens up. I can create that invite Russ into that. We're chatting. We're like, we also need to involve Susan. This is something that, as we're collaborating, we're doing a planning session for our project. And so it's just super simple to be able to go and do. Of course, you click the meet now, just like, when you go in any other, meeting, you can retitle it, turn on or off your camera, microphone, join it there, immediately set your, which equipment, which hardware that you're going to be using for that meeting, and then invite people, dial a number, it'll pull from the membership there, or you can do an email invitation if it's somebody that's outside. So it's just a quick and easy way to again collaborate. So you're not having to go and do all of the other setup for a formal meeting. It's just much more of an ad hoc capability. And let me relinquish control. If I get down to get back to the controls. Why am I not seeing the controls? Russ, are you able to float over, like maybe request control or?
No, I can't. Hold on a second. What the heck? I lost my cursor.
So let me
I got it.
Okay, got it.
All right, so let's see. All right, so I'm going to take you through 5 tips, and the first one is around copying a team to build a new team. And right now, for an end user, there is no capability to use a template. So if you have as an example, a sales department that needs to create, 20 different teams, and you want them to basically have the same structure, but you don't want to have to go and recreate everything for every one, you can set up a team and call it a sales team template as the name. You can make it hidden, but then you can use it still as when you go through the process of creating a new site, you can use that site as the template. You're going to basically copy it for each new site that you get. So if you think about sales organizations, you may have a US sales team, you may have a European sales team, a Japanese, just regional sales teams all around the world, and you want them to have their own individual teams, but you want them with the same structures and all applied to it. So this first tip, that's really what that covers, and we'll go through each of these. But the process is really the same as creating a new team. The thing is that what you have to do first is build a team that you're going to use as a copy, as your template. So the one that I'm using actually has additional channels and all that are specified for it. So I think I've got like four unique channels in there, but then each of those channels have tabs and all that I want to carry into my other sales sites that I created. So you go through the process of creating a new site essentially. So you select join or create team at the bottom on the left-hand side. Then you click your create team button, and then from there you come up with your create your team screen. And instead of building a team from scratch here, you're going to basically select create from. And on this, then you're going to select team and not Office 365 group. You want team. And on this screen, you can see I've got a list of sites that I can use as a template. And on the bottom one, you see my sales team template. Now, there's a couple other things around this. So in this one particular case, I don't have any other members that are part of this team, but you can see my other sites do. So if I create a site from them, that all the members of that team can actually come over with them into that new site if you want them to. So in this case, you basically select your sales team template, and then you can add new members in here just like normal if you want, or you can select skip. And then at this point, this is where it generates a new site, essentially a new team. And you can see in this case, I get my general just like I channel that I always get, but I also get my sales planning and sales reports channels that were part of my template site, as well as I get all the tabs that come in for my general channel. So I've got a sales team template, I've got a sales plan, a US sales, the other tabs, they'll also come over also. Now, the caveats to this is what this is doing is it's just taking the structure. So none of your content comes over. So your files and all do not come over as part of it. They get a blank file area to start with. None of the so all of the members, if you have members over on that, will be copied over. The tabs are created, but they're not connected. So if you have a sales report tab that's connected to a Power BI report, you're going to get the sales BI report tab, but it's not going to be actually connected. So then you need to go back and actually reconnect that tab. So that's a little bit of a downside to it. But you get all your channels. A new wiki is created for it. So it has its own unique wiki, just like a regular team would have. And as I mentioned, your files do not come over and your chats do not come over. So it's just, I don't want to use the word template. It's because it's not an actual template, but it gives you the structure to begin with. And if you have a lot of sites that you need to create, it can stream things for you. We're getting an echo again.
So yeah, I'm not hearing an echo on this side, so hopefully that's okay for everybody.
Okay. So the new file sharing experience is another capability that we're getting. And this is not available yet, but it will be available in July of 2020. And if you're familiar with SharePoint, a lot of those capabilities are basically starting to be surfaced up inside of Teams, the Teams library that's SharePoint, coming from SharePoint. So now you're going to basically, from inside of the Files tab, you're going to be able to create a shareable link directly from in there to basically share any file in that library. You're also going to get the capability to directly set any appropriate permissions on it, and as well as if it's a file that is stored in a chat, so that is actually stored in either OneDrive or in SharePoint, you're also going to get the capabilities to set permissions on that. So this is all functionality that if you've got a SharePoint background, it's all been in SharePoint for a while, probably back to about 2007. But it's all starting to surface up now through Teams, and we're going to see this going forward a lot with functionality that's in the Microsoft 365 platform that's going to start surfacing up through Teams. And it's just a maturity over time that's happening. So that's that tip. The next tip is around creating a custom invite for your company, and that is essentially inside of the admin center. You can configure what your meeting invite is going to look like. So if you have specific text that is part of it for a disclaimer, you can include that text in there. So in this case, there's 4 fields that you can specify. You can specify what the logo is. So if you want your company logo to show up in there, you can specify any public internet accessible URL for that logo, and it'll show up inside of your meeting invites, as well as a link to legal text if you have a separate page that contains a legal disclaimer and all that you want to use. And the same with the help text. If you have custom text that you want to share, you can basically create a page somewhere and just pop in the URL here. And then also you have the capability to specify the text for a footer. So the footer here is not a URL. This is actually the text that you want to appear. So I'll just show you what that looks like here. So this is one that I just kind of mocked up for this, but you can see I have my company URL in here. The footer text appears right below it. So whatever text that you have that you want to put in there, you can. But then you can also, you get a help and a legal link that will jump out to whatever paths you specify for there. So number 9 is the channel information pane. And that's another functionality that is coming in July 2020. And this is literally at the channel level, and it gives you the capability to display basic information about the channel. So you're going to get to see the description. You're going to get to see, anybody that has contributing members that are part of that team. But then there's also an area where additional messages can show up, and you can actually pin a post into there. So if you have a message, a conversation that's going on within the channel that you want to make sure everybody is seeing, you're going to get the capability to pin that to that channel panel. Yeah, that's a good one. Channel panel. I'm not sure why they didn't call it that. Channel information panel. So this is essentially what it'll look like on the right-hand side of the screen here, where you have your members listed and the updates. That is that's your panel on the right-hand side, and in that at the bottom you're going to get the pinned posts and all too. So it's just a good way of highlighting specific posts for your members of your team.
Well, that's an important question, just because in a lot of collaborations, people will get in a channel and they'll ask that question. It's like, who's participating in this? Who is a member of this? And so, yeah, you can kind of scroll through, you can click on and see the team members, but to seeing that, it's just making it more readily available, that information of who's actively participating within this discussion is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is one of the things I love about the Microsoft 365 platform is there's so much functionality there that, even if it's not quite in Teams yet today, it's in the platform. So it's just a matter of time before Microsoft is surfacing this stuff up. And because you don't have to do an upgrade or anything to get that new functionality, you're just going to automatically get it on a month-to-month basis. Whatever is new, you have access to.
Well, that's one indicator of that too. So if you're a little more on the development side of things, want to understand, what's not out there, what's coming, is watch what's happening with the Graph API. Because if, just to that point, if it's available in the Graph API, then it's accessible through each of these workloads, and eventually that data, can be surfaced within Teams.
Exactly. So you also notice that we're using live captioning today, and what I've learned over time is that a lot of people want to watch videos either, if they were in the office previously, they want to sit at their desk and watch the videos, but not have it, the audio out for everybody. So this was, the live captioning gives you that capability to present that, and it also makes it more inclusive for everybody. So, others can read the text as part of it, so they can read that conversation. But if you're ever laying in bed and you want to watch a video and you don't want to wake up your significant other, you can basically play your video and just read the text. So, the captioning is something that I would recommend that you enable on every video that you're going to be recording. All right, Christian, I'm going to give it back to you at this point. Oh, there's the screen with it. You can see it's on the bottom, but you can see it in our meeting today. So,
all right. So here's one. Again, this is more of it's less of a technology tip and more of a best practice. But one of the when Teams was launched, one of the primary piece of feedback from people was around navigation, and there are plenty of organizations that are out there that they have SharePoint as their primary portal. They use that for news and information sharing. They have workflows. They're very SharePoint centric. They're starting to use Teams for more of that project-centric, case management-centric, operations management, all those activities, that collaborative activities, that hub for teamwork. And then they're using many organizations that also use Yammer, the social capabilities, but for the community building aspect of that. And so there are, of course, and we've just seen in the last month announcements about, in fact, last month with Build and the virtual marathon event, which replaced the SharePoint conference, was the online component of that. You saw announcements around the deeper integrations between Teams and Outlook, and Teams, the new web part, and SharePoint, and the Yammer integration between these things. So you're seeing richer and richer integrations, which kind of goes back to the last point I made about the Graph API and what's available out there. However, you've got your SharePoint portal, your Yammer communities, and you're using Teams. How do I get these things to sync up? If you have related SharePoint team site, other SharePoint entities, so not just the automatic SharePoint assets that are built when you create a new team, but maybe you have legacy SharePoint environments you want to link to these libraries or sites. And there's also relevant Yammer communities and conversations that are happening over there, and you want to link the three together. So if I have a project team, so I have this generic example here, productivity, schmoductivity team, and that new product channel, that conversation, where there might be a new product relevant conversation happening in the Yammer community, and there might also be something happening over in SharePoint. And so I want to link those things together. And so this came from a great an article by Emma Jobling over at Cobweb. But essentially, it's this best practice of creating links in between them. So within Teams, what you would do is, in this example, I've created a tab and I've added that Yammer conversation over to that partner initiative conversation as a tab. And likewise, I could hit the plus mark. I can go in by next screen here and go grab that relevant SharePoint site. And likewise, inside of SharePoint, you have the link list over on the left side, bottom of that left side, you see the links. And so I can go into that specific team site or here from my homepage, and I can add as a link to the related Teams and Yammer communities. And then finally, over inside of Yammer, over on the right side, in what's the pinned part, web part there, I can then have links to that channel conversation, to that team specifically, or over to the related team site in SharePoint. So if I have people that are participating, now all three of these locations, they could be tied together by one Office 365 group. So from a Microsoft Graph perspective, they're all part of the same effort, the same initiative, tied together by that group. However, from a navigation standpoint, it just becomes really useful to be able to, well, people are moving between the workloads. The best practice is create those links. There's no automated way of doing this yet, but you automatically, you create those links so that you can navigate very quickly in between the related assets across those workloads. The next one is this idea of this new capability of sending urgent messages. So this is an example of one that I was going to present on. Tom grabbed it before I did. But this is this idea, kind of like you could do within SharePoint, within your portal, where you want to send out a message to either a specific group of individuals, a security group, or you want to send it out to everybody within a channel or within a team. And so you have the ability when you go and create that new content. Of course, this is, as Tom's example here, this is urgent. Where are we going for lunch? But you can select the exclamation point when you want to mark it as important. And what that'll do is you can set that level of urgency, so standard, important, and urgent, and that urgent setting. And here's the caveat here, as Tom points out, an urgent message will continually ping the recipient. So you want to be careful with how often you use that. But if you are notifying everybody that the system is going down, that you're pulling the network down for some fix of something that's going on, or that it's really urgent that we select a place to go to lunch right now and push that out there, and everyone will get prompted. If they don't see your message, it'll continue to go out there until they mark it and they respond to it. And so that's just be aware of how annoying that will be to people, but they'll definitely see it if it is urgent. And so you'll see it show up within the chat there, and they'll get the desktop notification. So they'll get pinged in different ways. If they're on some other phone call in a side meeting, and they're not going to miss it, they're going to have to take action to make it stop. So just be sensitive to that fact. And if people abuse it, you just watch that. Admins will go in and turn that capability off if it is abused. So use it sparingly. The 13th one is the ability to publish external content as a card. And so this is, again, one of those things where Microsoft talked about it when Teams launched. The difference between like a bot and a connector, and that was the way that they defined it. And they've the language is all kind of blurred and softened since then. This idea of having outside services that can publish content. So it's not intelligent, it's not a bot that you're having this back and forth interaction with, but you have this outside third-party service that is able to serve content over to like an RSS feed, for example, and publish to a conversation and make that relevant external content part of that conversation. And so that with that, through use of that connector, you can go and do that. So in this example, I'm a member of, a big fan of the Collab 365 community. And so all of their events, so you can go and add that as an RSS feed. Here in Zapier, If This Then That, Power Automate, all have these different tools to pull these outside resources and publish into a conversation. I always use the example of Twitter to be able to go and do that. So I can go in there, use the Twitter connector. I might want to add it to a specific team. So as I go in and I add that, I add it to the general tab, set up the connector. I can follow a certain profile, follow certain hashtags or activities. Again, be aware if you are adding in following a hashtag and having anyone that uses that hashtag post to a group, you could have hashtag hijacking happen. So just be aware of that if you just allow it to publish and somebody on the outside figures out that there's a lot of activity happening around this hashtag. Like I do the events, my company, Collab Talk, and the hashtag Collab Talk, I primarily use it. I do monthly tweet jams. Well, what happens is sometimes these tweet jams, like we're doing one on the 30th, they get so big that we trend nationally on Twitter. And we know when things pick up when we're trending nationally because suddenly the spammers come in. There'll be somebody with a link to a pornography site. That's usually, that you've hit the national list when you get the spammers that hit your list. So just be aware. If you have things publishing directly from Twitter, in this example, to your conversation, that you might have to do some cleanup from time to time. But it's really easy to go in and set that up to get that to publish. And it will just, I thought I had one more view there where it actually shows the Twitter results showing up in the feed. But it would be similar to what I showed with the Collab 365, where it would show up in the conversation thread. You see these new pieces, and you can then go respond to those and mention people and say, hey, I just saw this tweet come in to our company, to our company account. So you can actually have discussions about tweets that are being posted, or when you're being mentioned, your brand. You can, for example, create a channel where you're discussing the Excel 365, Russ, you and your team could have a channel where you're discussing mentions of your company. And so anything shows up, you can get a notification, you can go in there, take a look at it, have a discussion around it, and then, hey, here's how we're going to respond to this question. And then the person that owns that can go outside and do that. The next one, seeing your planner tasks. Now, I'd just like to preface this by saying that there are multiple ways that you can see the planner tasks. And of course, as part of Microsoft's overall task management strategy, there's a lot that's happening. You have the tasks app that's forthcoming. You have the, so basically the planner app is being upgraded to the tasks app, which is forthcoming. But the ability to go in, and there's a couple ways to do this. So when you have tasks that are assigned to you, if you have Planner up and running, what'll happen is actually up in the chat, as you see in this example that Tom had shared, you'll actually see a Planner chat of the different things that have been assigned to you. So you can go into, click on that Planner chat. It'll be up in your chats if you have a Planner board that's created within your team and you've been assigned tasks, and then you go into chat, that's when you'll see this. So if you have not been assigned any tasks, if Planner exists within your team, you go into chat, you will not see that Planner, so that you have to have been assigned something. But once you've been assigned something, we're in the chat view there. You can also click on the My Tasks, and it'll give you that board view. Of course, something that is I recommend, if you're more and more organizations that are starting to use Planner, again, that'll be changed to the Tasks app. It'll be upgraded with more features, which is different than the Lists app, which is also forthcoming, which will look very similar to the Tasks app in that primary view. But of course, the Tasks app equals the Planner app. But you can open up the app from the left-hand rail, as I've done here, and then pin it to the left-hand rail. So as you can see, and just above it, I've also pinned the Yammer app, so I can easily jump to either Yammer or Planner, soon to be Tasks, and then get to everything that's been assigned to me within that tenant. So what's great about this view, it's not just looking at what's been assigned to you from this view within that one team, but across all plans within that tenant. So this is fantastic, because let's say I'm a member of a dozen different teams within my organization's tenant, and each one of those teams has one or more Planner plans or boards, and I have dozens of tasks that are assigned to me across all those things. Coordinating the due dates on all of those things and jumping back and forth between those plans is just, it's a lot of work in and of itself. And so by going to the Planner tab and the My Tasks, and it will automatically organize based on the due date. And there's different filtered views that you'll be able to get into within the Tasks app. So what's coming beyond what you see here in the Planner app. But you'll be able to go in and see everything that's not started, those things that are in progress, sort things, filter your view by due date, and very quickly just get on top of all of your tasks across all of those plans. Really cool features that are coming. We can talk for an hour just about what's happening. In fact, I have a session that I'm giving tomorrow as part of GlobalCon 2 on the task management history. Are you watching any of those, Russ?
I watched a couple earlier in the week.
Yeah. So, and the last one's kind of a big one as well. And so this stuff is in fact, there was just an announcement. I think it's all GA now, the sensitivity labels. And I haven't gone and looked to see. Usually what happens is we have something in preview, like all my examples here are from the preview. I've not gone and walked through the entire use case to find out what's changed, because they'll often add features or remove things, streamline the UI. So I still need to go back through, but just give people a sampling of what this means, what you can go in and do. But part of it's still listed. I looked yesterday, and my tenant it's still showing as public preview, but I believe the GA, it's rolling out as Microsoft does. They're rolling it out to all the tenants globally. So over the next month or so, every tenant around the world should have the generally available version of sensitivity labels. And of course, this stretches across the teams, groups, and SharePoint. So this is a way that you could go and create these sensitivity labels, these as part of the Compliance Center. and apply them to any net new content and retroactively assign these things to existing content via PowerShell. So what this does is when you go and create a label, so I've got some generic examples here of restricted or classified content. And so I want to enforce this policy. So as people are uploading new content into Teams, into SharePoint, that they're applying these labels. And maybe your organization has some very strict, very specific security and compliance rules around content that's being stored and how that's shared. And you want to be able to go in as part of your discovery process and very quickly go in and search and find the content by its label, or identify content that's not yet been labeled and apply those labels. So you're going to go and create these policies. First, you create the policy, and then you go and apply that. So how that looks, so admins go in, they create that, they review, they modify those things. It's in the Security and Compliance Center, and you go into classification under sensitivity levels, labels that you can see on the left side, create a new label. It goes in, you outline all of the settings for that, you name it, you create a description around that. You then can go in and set the encryption levels and be very specific on the permissions of who has access to those and when they have access to those policies. You can put in a watermark on that. So if it is something that is restricted, for example, and you want to make it very clear when somebody opens up a document and they realize, hey, this isn't something that I should be sharing out before they go and share it with in an area where there are external users, for example, and you want to restrict that or control that. And so people know that, hey, this is something that, or maybe there's data loss prevention rules on this. So I want to be very specific about where it can be shared. So you mark it, and then you auto label any new content as it comes in. What does that look like? And as part of that discovery process to identify content as well. And then I know I'm going through this very quickly, but you'll be able to get all the slides and be able to look back through this stuff. And of course, I've got links to the content where you could get further information about going and setting this up in your organization. So at the end, you review all of your settings, you submit that new policy. That has been created, it's been added to your list of policies. And so now when you're going and uploading content, you'll be able to see, as I said, I've got that very official title of super secretive stuff. So that's the top tier in my organization, Russ. The super sensitive stuff, super secretive, super sensitive, that whoa, I shouldn't be looking at this content or shouldn't be sharing this out. Now, of course, if in your tenant, it's still not generally available, you want to go in, you have to use PowerShell to activate the public preview. And there's some guidance on how to do that out on the site as well. I know that as of last night, that content, that guidance is still out there because it's not fully deployed yet. That of course, guidance will disappear after it's GA and everybody has access to that. But you can read more out on docs.microsoft.com. Do a quick search under Microsoft Teams and sensitivity-labels. You'll be able to find that information. And Russ, over to you.
Okay, fantastic, thanks. I just want to remind everybody too that the Q&A section is open there, and if you have a question, please submit it, and Christian and I are going to hang around for a little bit afterwards, and we'll respond to questions and also.
Yeah, due to the sharing, I can't get to the module right now, so we'll have to look at them at the end here if people can hang around after the hour.
So I just lost everything.
Lost your share.
Yeah, I lost everything.
There it is.
Okay. All right, I got control back. All right, so real quick. It's not advancing. No, it's not advancing on my side.
There, the controls you should see in bottom left now. Yep, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. So create contact groupings, and this is just a way for you to easily organize your contacts. By default, you get a folder in there or a grouping called favorites. You can create additional ones. So one here I added real quick was Microsoft, but the process around doing that is just at the bottom of that screen on the left-hand side, there's a create new contact group, and pops up a window, just gives you the capability to name it. So however you want to organize your contacts, you can create a new group by that name. You can also, at that point, you can see here it added Excel 365 in as a new contact group. So with that, you would go over to the ellipsis on the right-hand side there next to the contact group and select add a contact to this group. And you'll get a pop-up screen that'll ask you for the person, and it's basically a people selector field. So you just type the first couple characters of the person's name. So I'm adding Miriam here, and click add, and at that point it adds Miriam in, so you can see Miriam showing up there. So that's real quick, just a way of organizing your contacts into groupings. The other thing I wanted to mention is around usage reports. It's something that, I get asked about a lot in terms of, especially your power users want to have access to them. Now, this is inside the admin center, so you'd have to be a Teams admin at least to be able to access this. But there is a usage report there that I wanted everybody to at least know about. And, it has some, key parts of that report. So you can basically display your information, the report, based on the last 7 days, 30 days, or 90 days. And then you have to run the report. And at that point, it brings up the bottom half of the screen here. And on that, you can see the actual dates that it's selected. And you can see the active users on the left-hand side axis of the chart. And you can see below the chart, you can see your total active users. You have your team names, and it's broken down by team name at that point. On the top right, number 6, you have it's a settings gear icon, but essentially what that does is allows you to edit the columns that are part of this report. So I've got basically everything displayed here, but you can, if you only want 2 of those displayed, you have the capability to go in there and do that. And you can also export it to Excel. So that's the number 8 icon up there. I'm sorry, number 7 icon up there is export to Excel. So you can basically dump all this out into an Excel report if you need to. And then lastly, what's not shown on here is also in the top right corner. And that's a options to flip this into full screen. So it takes all the navigation and everything out of it. And what you're seeing here is the full screen view of it. So, that there is a usage report there, and there's a URL if you need to get access to more information about that report. Save a message, you got a lot of different teams you're part of, channels you're part of, and you need to be able to kind of reference back to a message. One of the capabilities in there is if you go onto a chat and you select the ellipsis in the top right-hand corner, one of the options in there is to save the message. What you're doing is essentially bookmarking that message. So you select that, it saves it, and then to see your saved messages, what you want to do is go in the upper right-hand corner of Teams to your profile icon. And if you select that down, you can see that there's a saved option under there. If you select that saved option, then it displays all of your saved messages. So you can see in this case, Miriam has 2 messages that are saved. And it's just a way of kind of getting back to messages that that are important and be able to get to those. Something that you want to save long term. Also, kind of an add-on to this one, or to the previous, is there is no capability to specifically flag a message right now. So the closest thing that we have for that is if you have messages that you're working on or things that are important, it's kind of like creating your own to-do list inside of Teams. You can mark a message as unread. and it goes back to the text being bold for the message, and it'll also show in the left rail as having an item that's unread, so that you can then, if you, a lot of times I'll do it as a way of just creating daily tasks for myself, and I'll just flip that back so that I know the need to go back to that specific message. So this is what it looks like. So you can see the chat icon, you have the one message showing, you can see the who there is, message is in bold text. So just a quick way of identifying messages you need to refer to again. And then the last tip is around the wiki. I was previously a big fan of wikis, kind of inside of SharePoint, but you lose all of the search capability now with Teams, so you cannot search a wiki yet. So what I've been recommending is that companies or individuals, when they're building their channel out, to basically remove the wiki itself and replace it with a OneNote. So, it's just a tab essentially that's up there. So you go up, you just drop down, click on the wiki tab, drop it down, and there's a remove option in there. You can basically select that and it removes it. Then you go back, and on your tabs, you got that plus icon in the top right. Select that, and you're adding a tab. So Christian kind of went through the process of adding a tab. The thing that's different here is you're just going to select OneNote, and when you do that, you have a couple capabilities within here. One, you can create a new notebook for that channel if you want. If the team the team will have one, which is what you're seeing here for retail. You can select that and reference that. Where if you have access to another notebook, you can also reference that and select that there. So you select that, and at that point, you get your OneNote file showing up. Now, anything that you enter into your OneNote becomes searchable from the Teams interface. So now, if you go back up to your search bar at the top, you start running searches in there, and it'll pick up hits inside of OneNote. So with that,
I say that, Russ, that was like one of the most requested features for the year one after Teams was launched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody wanted to do exactly that. So that's a great tip.
Yeah. So I want to thank you all for joining us. As I mentioned, if you have questions and all, please put them into the Q&A. We will hang around and respond to each of those questions. To get in touch with Christian and I, you can basically hit us up on LinkedIn. There's the URLs for our LinkedIns and the YouTube where this will be posted also. Christian also has his BuckleyPlanet.com website and his blog and all out there. Anything else you want to kind of?
No, and as soon as you post this recording up on YouTube, so that should be available soon, I'll then have a blog post where I'll have a link to the video, and I'll post the slides out to SlideShare so everybody can get those and have access to everything we've shared with all the links as well. So that'll be available later today.
Yeah, and next month is July 29th at noon. Christian and I will be back with a whole new set of 20 more tips for you. So please go out to Eventbrite. Again, it's the same URL that you used to register for today's event. Just select the other day, register for that event, and hit us up with any questions you have.
And I'll tease one other thing about that. For those that participate, we're also going to have a free ebook that'll have all 60 plus a few more tips that are included in that, so that we'll make that as part of that webinar. So good Excellent. Reason to participate next month.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, folks, that's all we have for today. As I mentioned, Christian and I will hang around a little bit and answer the questions, but thank you for joining us, and have a great day and a safe day. Take care.